Is Zach Hyman in danger of playing himself off of Canada's team at the Four Nations face-off? Carlo, FanDuel certainly doesn't think so. Do they have it right?
They absolutely have it right. And I think the conversation around Zach Hyman has to tone down just a little bit. Look, he's gotten off to a very slow start. Zeros across the board in the stat sheet through 6 games. But let's look at the Edmonton Oilers team as a whole. They had to replace a couple defensemen. They bring new guys in. Stuart Skinner has been struggling a little bit. Their offense has been struggling a lot. Only 12 goals through 6 games. That's only 2 goals a game. But the worst part of their struggles has been their power play. Their power play, which was 4th best in the league last year, where Zach Hyman had 15 of those 64 goals that they scored, is operating at just above 6%, which is 30th in the league. So there's a lot that's struggling right now in Edmonton. I don't think they're hitting the panic button, and we shouldn't be hitting the panic button on Zach Hyman, because let's face it, this team went to Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Finals and had to face and taste the defeat of that through the summer months. That's something they're probably still thinking about, probably need a little bit more time to overcome. Zach Hyman will rebound, and Zach Hyman will be a lock to make this Canada team.
Totally with you. Locked to be on the first line alongside Connor McDavid. Let's keep in mind, Zach Hyman had 54 goals in the regular season, another 16 in the playoffs. Let's not let a slow start to this year derail what will be a very successful run for him on the Canadian team. All right, I think Steven Stamkos is a different conversation. Talk about power play production, 19 power play goals for Tampa last season. Now in Nashville, a slow start. FanDuel has Stammer, minus 470, a heavy favorite to make Team Canada. I just don't see the logic behind that. Are you with me?
Yeah, I would definitely take the value on him not making this team. And look, we all cheer for Steven Stamkos. We all cheer for great players. And Steven Stamkos missed out on an Olympic opportunity with an injury back in his career. So I would imagine he's really looking forward to this opportunity. But I just look at the depth up front that Canada boasts with their forward group. You've got McDavid, you got McKinney, you got Crosby, Marner, Bedard, Hyman on the top 6. I don't see Stamkos fitting in on the top 6 now. If you want a coach that's going to have role-defined lines, maybe he can find a role, maybe in their bottom 6 on their 3rd and 4th line. But even that, there's still tons of competition. And the fact that he's gotten off to a slow start in a new spot in Nashville, leaving a place he was very comfortable in Tampa, the Nashville Predators are struggling as a team, and you wonder what type of struggles that'll continue for Nashville and Stamkos, and how much that'll hurt his chances of wanting to make that team. So I just look at the depth of this Canadian team, and I just don't see Stamkos fitting in right now.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. And you talk about role definition. Stamkos is a guy who needs to play with other skilled players. He's one of the elite shooters of our generation. To play him on the 3rd or 4th line makes literally no sense. When it comes to right-handed wingers, I look at a guy like Mark Stone or perhaps Sam Reinhart, who would be much better fits on Team Canada. All right, let's shift to the goaltenders here. And this has been the subject of national concern for years now. Looking at FanDuel's numbers, Carlo, 3 goalies are favored to be part of the Canadian roster. Binnington, Skinner, and Adin Hill of the Vegas Golden Knights. Is there anyone external to those 3 who you could see sneaking up and maybe claiming a spot?
Well, if you paid attention to my list at the trade deadline and even at free agency when we had some fun putting these lists together, I had Samuel Montembeault as the guy in the 3rd slot, just because I do a lot of the Habs games. I've watched this guy grow. I've watched him develop. And look at the start he's gotten off to this year and the age that he plays at 28 years old. There's a lot of upside here. And again, we're talking about the 3rd goalie. I think Skinner and Binnington are absolute locks to make this team, because you look at how thin the position are. Binnington won a Stanley Cup. Stuart Skinner went to Game 7 of the Stanley Cup. Adin Hill also won a Stanley Cup, but you question his availability. He's a guy that's battled through injury. But ultimately, what it's going to come down to is how good these guys are playing up until the point where they need to make the decision on the roster. So it's a big challenge for anybody in the conversation to be in Canada's net.
Yeah, I think another guy we could look at is Connor Ingram for the Utah Hockey Club. He's been really good. He was really good last year, of course. He's not playing in front of superstar defensemen or forwards with that group right now, but perhaps in front of the Canadian roster, things would look a lot different for Connor Ingram. You could find him plus 340 on FanDuel. One last one for me. Austin Matthews to be the captain of the American team is plus 154. Now, there are a bunch of captains around the NHL who will be playing for Team USA. Do you think the best bet is Austin Matthews, who is favored on FanDuel?
I think it's a really good bet because he's a guy this year who was freshly named captain, and rightfully so, because he is identified as one of the best players in the league and ultimately one of the best goal scorers in the league. And he's definitely taken that role on, leading, the Toronto Maple Leafs and how historic that franchise is as the captain. And you look at that roster, Matthews is a captain, Brady Tkachuk's a captain, Quinn Hughes is a captain, Dylan Larkin's a captain. They got a lot of guys right now that have already experienced that role. But if you're looking for a favorite and you're looking at a guy that represents the face of U.S. hockey, I think Austin Matthews is the front and center of that.
That's an interesting conversation. Maybe Matthew Tkachuk. I know he's not the captain of the Florida Panthers, but he has been in the Cup the last 2 years, winning last year. And this would be a good spot for him, perhaps, to take an elevated leadership role in international hockey.
Maybe if Patrick Kane somehow finds his way to be on the team, maybe that's a legacy move for them, considering all the great things he's done for USA Hockey. But you're right. Absolutely fascinating conversation.
We are less than 6 weeks away from the announcement of the respective rosters for the Four Nations face-off. Can't wait for that. Can't wait for the tournament. Can't wait to be back with you next week.